You know, sometimes I think the great joke of existence is how earnest we all become about it. How we stride through the days like clerks in some cosmic office, ticking boxes, pushing papers of purpose, stamping meaning upon each passing hour, as though life itself were waiting for our report. And yet, there's no one to submit it to. No final auditor in the sky. No stern examiner with a clipboard marking your progress. Only you caught in the delicious confusion of being alive, trying, in all your seriousness, to prove something to yourself that never truly needed proof. See, the trick of life is not to solve it, but to play with it. To realize that the whole business of being this strange dance of laughter and tears was never meant to be taken as a test. We are the only species that seems embarrassed about being here. A cat doesn't wake in the morning worrying whether it's living up to its potential as a cat. A tree doesn't compare its branches to the next trees. But we humans, oh, how we fret. We spend our lives straightening imaginary ties, rehearsing for some performance that never actually begins. You are here, breathing, hearing these words, and all the things you've been trying so hard to achieve, all the roles you've played, the impressions you've crafted, they're like costumes in a grand play. Beautiful, yes, but only costumes. Imagine for a moment that you're at a masquerade ball. Everyone's dressed in their finest, masks glittering, music swelling. You could spend the evening worrying whether your costume is convincing, or you could dance. You could laugh, spill your drink, twirl a stranger, forget for a while who's behind the mask. And in that forgetting, you find yourself, because the point of the ball was never the mask, you see. It was the dance. So many people live as though the music must be analyzed, the steps perfected, the outcome secured. But life isn't an exam. It's jazz improvised, surprising, playful. It happens through you, not because of you. When you try too hard to hold it, it wriggles away. When you laugh and let it move, it carries you. I once met a man who was very serious about being spiritual. He sat so upright in meditation that you could hang a coat on his back. His brow furrowed, his lips pursed, as though enlightenment was something he might force open by sheer posture. And I thought, poor fellow, he's working far too hard to let go. The more you grip the idea of awakening, the further it runs. The harder you try to become serene, the louder the mind protests. Until, in sheer exhaustion, you laugh and there it is. The peace you were chasing was the laughter itself. Seriousness is a subtle form of fear. It's the mind's way of saying, if I relax, everything will fall apart. But what if just imagine the very thing you're trying to hold together never needed your grip at all? Like a child holding a soap bubble, terrified it will burst. And yet when the bubble does burst, what remains? Only a little shimmer, a smile, and the air itself unchanged. Life is full of bursting bubbles, relationships, jobs, identities, plans. They shimmer for a time and then they go. But the air remains. You, the space in which it all happens, are never diminished. Don't take life so seriously, because it's not a fixed thing to be mastered. It's a living movement, a play that unfolds through laughter, error, and wonder. Have you noticed how children approach the world? When they play, they're utterly absorbed knights, explorers, monsters, but never solemn. They can die dramatically on the battlefield, and 5 seconds later rise to become astronauts. They take the game seriously only while it's being played. They don't mistake it for life itself. And yet, as adults, we forget. We become accountants of the soul, measuring progress, counting virtues, comparing destinies. We think that if we worry enough, we'll somehow protect ourselves from loss. But worry doesn't guard you, it only drains the color from the moment you already have. Try an experiment, sometime. Go about your day as though it were a kind of dream. When you wake in the morning, see if you can notice the absurdity, this curious creature you are, getting up, brushing teeth, making coffee, speaking words into the air, and calling it conversation. It's all wonderfully strange. And yet, when you notice that strangeness, not mockingly but tenderly, something opens, a freedom. Because in that moment, you're no longer trapped in the performance. You're watching it with affection. You begin to see that life doesn't need to be conquered or explained or tamed. It only asks to be noticed and perhaps chuckled at. For instance, think of how people argue about meaning. Philosophers, theologians, scientists, all terribly serious men, shaking fists of intellect at the mystery of being. But what if the mystery was never meant to be solved? What if it's an invitation to dance? Meaning isn't a riddle to be cracked. It's a song to be sung. And you can't sing it with clenched teeth. So relax your grip. Let yourself be a little foolish. Let life surprise you. When you walk down the street, look at people's faces, the tension, the furrowed brows, the silent rehearsals of imagined conversations. Everyone trying to manage life rather than live it. But the beauty of being human is that you can step out of that management role. You can drop the clipboard and just watch the show. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is laugh at your own seriousness. Because, you see, when you laugh, you return to the center. Not the shallow laughter of mockery, but the deep, unguarded laughter that says, "Ah, I see. It was never as heavy as I thought." That's the laughter of release. The moment you realize that even your confusion, your mistakes, your longing are part of the great comedy. A friend once told me, "I take my responsibilities very seriously." And I said, "That's fine, just don't take yourself seriously." Because you can care deeply about things, work hard, love fiercely, and still know it's all play. Seriousness isn't the same as sincerity. You can be sincere without being solemn. In fact, the most profound people I've met are the ones who carry a quiet sparkle in their eyes, as if they've seen through the game and decided to keep playing anyway. You see, when you stop taking life so seriously, you don't become careless, you become carefree. There's a difference. One is neglect, the other is liberation. Stop and listen to yourself thinking. You'll hear the mind whispering all sorts of things. Be better, do more, prove it, fix it. But who is listening? Who watches those thoughts come and go? That stillness behind the voice, that's you. And that stillness is untouched by any of it. No matter how dramatic the play becomes, the audience remains unharmed. You are the audience, not the actor. And once you remember that, the play becomes delightful again. Now, this doesn't mean you should retreat from life or stop caring about what happens. Not at all. In fact, when you no longer cling to outcomes, you can engage more fully because you're not acting out of fear, you're acting out of curiosity. Imagine painting a picture. If you're obsessed with how it will turn out, your hand tightens, your strokes become hesitant. But if you paint for the joy of movement, the colors sing. That's how life works too. The universe is not asking you to be perfect. It's asking you to participate. When you stop taking it so seriously, you stop resisting its rhythm. You become, quite naturally, in tune. And this is the quiet secret behind laughter, behind spontaneity, behind peace. It's not something you achieve. It's something you allow. So, let it be light. Let your own existence be a kind of gentle smile, not a grin of denial, but a calm acknowledgement that this whole thing, this life, is utterly miraculous and profoundly absurd at the same time. The human being is the cosmic joke telling itself. And the punchline is always you. See, when you begin to loosen your grip on the seriousness of it all, something extraordinary happens. You start to breathe differently. You start to see how much effort it actually took to hold up that heavy mask, the one called me. And when you finally set it down, what relief! You discover that the one you were pretending to be was never truly necessary. That life has been quite content to carry on quite merrily. In fact, without your constant supervision. It's as if you've been standing by a river, scooping the water with both hands, desperately trying to control its flow. And the river simply laughs and continues downstream. The great mischief of being human is this. We imagine that we must make life happen, when in truth, life is happening all by itself. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, thoughts appear and dissolve. You didn't order these functions, you inherited them. They are gifts, spontaneous, effortless, unearned. And yet we wander about, worrying whether we're doing life right. It's rather like the waves wondering whether they're waving properly. Now, I don't say this to mock our seriousness. It comes from a beautiful impulse, the wish to do well, to be worthy, to make sense of it all. But somewhere along the way, that impulse hardens into tension. We forget that worthiness was never a qualification, it was the starting point. A child doesn't ask, "Do I deserve to play?" It just plays. And in doing so, it becomes the pure expression of life itself. Can you imagine if the universe required a license to exist? If before every sunrise, there had to be an official signature granting permission? Ridiculous, isn't it? And yet, many of us live as though we're waiting for that permission to relax, to laugh, to be ourselves. The whole trick, you see, is realizing that you're already approved. Existence is your invitation. The problem with taking life too seriously is that it turns this grand adventure into a chore. We become like bureaucrats in our own hearts, stamping every joy with suspicion, filing away every moment into categories of success or failure. But life, my dear friend, doesn't work in spreadsheets. It dances in spirals, not straight lines. The moments that really matter, the ones that change you, are never the ones you planned. They happen in the small absurdities, the misplaced key that leads to a new conversation, the mistake that becomes an opportunity, the laughter that breaks through tears. It's all beautifully unplanned. When you stop taking life so seriously, you begin to notice its artistry. The way everything seems to balance chaos and order, gain and loss, the tragic and the comic, like a cosmic juggler keeping the whole act alive. And you are part of that juggling act. Not as a burden, but as a rhythm. You might fall from time to time, of course you will, but even the fall is part of the dance. Imagine a comedian who never makes a mistake, never forgets a line. Wouldn't that be dreadfully dull? The beauty of the performance lies in its fragility, the risk that something might go wrong. That's what makes it alive. And that's what makes you alive. So, when you stumble, don't scold yourself. Smile. You're improvising. The universe loves a good improvisation. You see, this is what we forget when we take ourselves too seriously, that we are, each of us, improvisations. There's no final script, no master plan etched in stone. Life is not a rule book, it's a jazz session. You come in with your instrument, listen to the others, find your rhythm, and play. Some notes will clash, others will soar. And at the end, all that remains is the music. When you see this clearly, you begin to understand that there's no real separation between the sacred and the ordinary. The laughter of a child, the smell of morning coffee, the awkward silence between two people, all of it is sacred, precisely because it's so fleeting. Don't be fooled into thinking enlightenment is something distant, wrapped in incense and robes. It's right here in the ordinary absurdity of things. In the way your shoe squeaks on a rainy street. In the way your mind drifts while waiting at a red light. In the way you catch yourself being terribly serious, and then for no reason you laugh. That's it. That laughter is enlightenment, because in that instant, the whole pretense collapses. The heavy machinery of me pauses, and what remains is just life, as it is. That's the secret. Enlightenment isn't something you add to yourself, it's what's left when you stop pretending. Now, I can almost hear your mind asking, but if I don't take life seriously, won't I become lazy or careless? But notice that seriousness talking again. Seriousness always disguises itself as responsibility. But true responsibility doesn't come from fear, it comes from love. When you love a flower, you water it not because you're serious about flowers, but because it brings you joy. When you love a person, you care for them not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of your being. And when you love life, truly love it, you participate in it wholeheartedly, playfully, freely. You act not because you must, but because you may. So, let the seriousness drop. Let yourself be moved by the music. When joy calls, answer. When sorrow arrives, welcome it too, not as an enemy, but as another note in the melody. After all, even the saddest song is beautiful when you stop resisting its tune. Life doesn't ask you to always smile, it asks you to feel. It doesn't demand perfection, it invites participation. There's an old saying, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Perhaps that's the simplest wisdom of all. To take yourself lightly, not flippantly, not irresponsibly, but lightly, as in with grace. As if your very being were a dance of air, passing through this moment just long enough to notice it. So, what would it be like, right now, to take yourself lightly? To set aside every idea of what you should be, and simply be as you are, a temporary expression of the infinite, humming along for a brief, miraculous instant? Once you taste that lightness, you find that life no longer needs to be conquered or controlled. You begin to trust it. You realize that the same intelligence that makes a seed bloom and the stars burn is moving through you, guiding you in ways your mind could never calculate. And in that trust, there is peace. You can walk through the world with a kind of gentle humor, the humor of someone who knows that even their mistakes are divine mischief. You can meet the unknown not with dread, but with curiosity. You can love without needing to own, work without needing to win, live without needing to justify. For the moment you stop taking life so seriously, you return to its center where joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death are all part of one vast, laughing rhythm. Listen. The laughter of existence is everywhere. It hums through the heart, through the wind, through every passing glance between strangers. It says, "Don't you see, it's all right. You're already home." And so, when you wake tomorrow, when you step once more into the curious play of ordinary life, remember, you are not required to have. There are times in life when you feel as though you have wandered off the map. You look around and nothing seems familiar. The signposts that once guided you are gone. The landmarks that once gave you confidence have vanished, and suddenly you are overcome with a strange disorientation. You may call it confusion, uncertainty, or despair, but beneath all those names is a single experience. You feel lost. To be lost is not simply to lack direction. It is to have once believed you knew where you were going, only to realize that the path has dissolved beneath your feet. And in that moment, everything you trusted begins to tremble. The career you thought would define you feels empty. The relationship you believed would complete you unravels. The ideals you clung to no longer hold weight. You stand in the middle of life's forest and see only trees, stretching endlessly with no clear way forward. At first, this can feel like failure. After all, we are taught from childhood that life is a journey with a clear destination, and that our task is to find the straightest route to that destination. Parents, teachers, leaders, and advertisements all hand us maps. They tell us, study hard, get the right job, marry the right person, accumulate wealth, and you will arrive safely at happiness. But sooner or later, many of us discover that these maps are faulty. They do not match the terrain. We follow them diligently, only to find ourselves in places we never wanted to be. And when the map fails us, we feel lost. Yet perhaps this sense of being lost is not the catastrophe it appears to be. Perhaps it is, in fact, a gift. For the truth is, the map was never the territory. It was only a picture, a sketch, a simplified story. The territory itself is always more vast, more wild, more unpredictable than any map can show. And when the map is torn away, frightening though it may be, we are at last forced to look at the territory with our own eyes. We discover reality directly, without the filter of borrowed instructions. Consider how a traveler might cling desperately to a guidebook, reading every detail and trying to match it to the streets of a city. But one day, the book is lost, and the traveler is forced to wander. At first, there is panic, but then, slowly, the city comes alive. Sights and sounds emerge that the book never mentioned. Hidden alleyways, unexpected encounters, uncharted beauty. What once seemed like disorientation becomes discovery. Being lost is the doorway to truly seeing, and so it may be with your own life. The disorientation you feel is not proof that you have failed, but proof that you are finally meeting reality as it is. You are no longer shielded by the maps of others, no longer protected by the certainty of borrowed truths. You are naked before the mystery, and though it is terrifying, it is also alive. To be lost is to be free of false guidance, free to wander, free to see freshly. Yet notice how hard it is to accept this. The mind clings to certainty like a child clings to a blanket. We would rather have a false map than no map at all. We would rather pretend we know than admit we do not. And so the moment of lostness feels unbearable. But look closer. The discomfort arises not from being lost itself, but from resisting it. The trees are only frightening because you demand a clear path. The silence is only heavy because you insist on constant noise. If you let yourself rest in the lostness, something begins to shift. Have you ever noticed how silence deepens when you stop straining to fill it? At first it is uncomfortable, but then it becomes rich, almost musical. In the same way, lostness becomes meaningful when you stop insisting on certainty. It becomes a vast openness, a space in which anything is possible. What felt like a dead end reveals itself as the edge of a larger horizon. You are not trapped, you are unmoored, and that is a very different thing. Think of a river. We often imagine it as having a single destination, flowing inevitably toward the sea, but along the way it meanders, branches, doubles back, floods and dries. If you stand on its banks at any given moment, you might say, this river is lost. It is wandering aimlessly. But from the larger view, it is simply the river being itself, finding its way through the land as it must. To be lost is only to be seen from too narrow a perspective. From the broader perspective, nothing is lost at all. So when you feel lost, what is really happening? You are awakening to the fact that life is not a straight road with a fixed destination. You are realizing that all the maps were temporary, that they could never contain the mystery of existence. And while this realization unsettles the mind, it liberates the heart. For then you no longer have to pretend. You no longer have to force yourself into paths that do not fit. You can allow yourself to wander, to question, to begin again. Lostness, then, is not the enemy of life. It is life breaking through the illusions you once clung to. It is reality reminding you that the point was never to arrive, but to move, to explore, to live. To be lost is to stand at the threshold of discovery, trembling perhaps, but also alive with possibility. And notice how, in those moments of disorientation, the smallest details become radiant. When the big picture collapses, the present moment comes to the foreground. You feel the air on your skin. You hear the rustle of leaves. You notice the rise and fall of your breath. The mind, stripped of its maps, returns to immediacy. And in that immediacy, you find a strange peace. For the present moment has no need for maps. It is complete in itself. In truth, you cannot be lost in the present. Lostness always refers to the future or the past. You say, I do not know where I am going, or I should not be where I am. But here, now, you are simply here. The ground supports you. The breath moves in and out. Life continues. To drop into the present is to see that lostness is only a thought, not a reality. And when that thought softens, what remains is not despair but wonder. So perhaps, rather than resisting lostness, you might welcome it. You might see it as an initiation, a necessary stage in awakening. For who has ever truly found themselves without first being lost? Who has ever discovered truth without first seeing the failure of illusion? The very word discover means to uncover, to remove what once covered over reality. Lostness removes the cover, and though the exposure is raw, it is also true. In the end, the feeling of being lost may be the most honest feeling of all, for it admits what is always the case, that we do not ultimately know where life is taking us. The certainty we cling to is a fragile construction. Lostness tears it away and reveals the vastness beyond. And in that vastness, you may find not the path you expected, but the path you needed. When the path disappears beneath your feet, when the signs no longer point the way, and when the horizon stretches endlessly in every direction, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to discover that being lost is not an obstacle to life, but part of its essence. For what does it mean to be found, if not to have first been lost? And what does it mean to have direction, if not to have wandered without one? To feel lost is to be placed at the heart of mystery, where life can no longer be reduced to neat explanations. The truth is, you were never truly in control of the journey. You imagined that you were choosing each step, plotting each destination, and charting each course. But look closely. Did you decide to be born? Did you choose your first breath, your first thought, your first desire? Life has been carrying you all along, flowing like a river that bends and turns without asking permission. To feel lost is simply to realize this, that the river does not always follow your map, but it always flows, always moves, always carries. And so, the moment of lostness is also the moment of truth. It is the place where the illusion of control begins to crack, where you see that you are not the little navigator steering through a dangerous sea, but the very sea itself, with all its waves and currents. The loss of certainty is the birth of freedom, for now you no longer need to force life to conform to your plans. You can begin to move with it, to surrender to its rhythm, to trust that it knows more than you ever could. This is what the ancient sages called wu wei, effortless action, flowing with the grain of things instead of against it. Imagine a dancer moving to music. The dancer does not plan each step in advance, nor does she fight the rhythm. She listens, responds, allows the body to be moved by the sound. In the same way, life invites you to dance with it. Lostness is the silence before the music begins, the pause that invites you to listen more deeply. And when you do, you may find yourself moving with a grace you did not know was possible. Think of how a bird flies. It does not calculate each gust of wind, each eddy of air. It spreads its wings and trusts the sky to hold it. Or think of how a wave rises on the ocean. It does not know where it will crest, nor when it will fall, yet it belongs perfectly to the movement of the whole. To feel lost is to realize that you, too, are like the bird and the wave carried by something larger, included in a pattern beyond comprehension. You do not need to know the way, because the way is already unfolding through you. And here is the paradox. It is often when you stop searching desperately for direction that direction appears. Have you noticed how solutions come most easily when you stop trying to force them? How clarity arises not in the frenzy of thought, but in the quiet of letting go. To be lost is to be emptied of old certainties, and in that emptiness, new possibilities emerge. The openness of lostness is the very ground in which discovery grows. But what is it that we discover in lostness? First, we discover that the self we thought we were, the one who must always know, always plan, always control, is not as solid as it seemed. You believed you were the driver behind the eyes, the thinker of thoughts, the chooser of actions, but in lostness, that image crumbles. You see that thoughts arise on their own, feelings come and go, choices present themselves like waves breaking on the shore. The you who was supposed to be in charge is nowhere to be found, and though this may seem frightening, it is also liberating. For if the little self is not in control, then the burden is lifted. Life can flow as it will, and you can rest. Second, we discover that lostness is not separation, but intimacy. When the map is gone, you are no longer looking at life from above, as though it were an object to be controlled. You are inside it, immersed, woven into every detail. The rustle of leaves, the sound of rain, the rhythm of breath, all of it surrounds you, includes you, moves with you. Lostness dissolves the distance between you and the world. You realize you were never a separate traveler moving through a foreign land. You are the land itself, the path itself, the very movement of the journey. And third, we discover that lostness is not permanent. It is a season, like winter, cold, perhaps harsh, but also necessary. For in winter the ground rests, the trees shed their leaves, and what seems like death is preparation for spring. To be lost is to enter a season of dormancy, of waiting, of gestation. It is not the end, but the pause before renewal. And when spring comes, when new paths open, you may see that the lostness was not wasted. It was the soil from which new life grew. So rather than resisting lostness, we might honor it. We might see it as part of the great rhythm of existence, the ebb and flow of knowing and not knowing, of clarity and confusion, of direction and wandering. Just as day and night belong together, just as tide and trough are inseparable, so too do foundness and lostness belong to one another. Without lostness, foundness would have no meaning. Without confusion, clarity would not shine. This is why many traditions speak of the dark night of the soul, a period of disorientation and emptiness that precedes awakening. It is not punishment, but preparation. It is the breaking open of the old, so that the new can enter. And so when you feel lost, you may trust that something is ripening beneath the surface, something that will emerge in its own time. You do not need to force it, any more than you can force a seed to sprout before it is ready. You need only wait, trust, and allow. And in that waiting, you may find a peace you did not expect. For when you no longer demand that life provide answers, you are free to rest in the questions themselves. To live without knowing is not a failure. It is a kind of faith, a willingness to let life unfold without clinging. And in that faith, you may find that you are never truly lost at all. You are always here, always part of the unfolding, always held in the great embrace of existence. Look around you now. Notice the space in which these words appear. Notice the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle sounds in the room. In this immediacy, there is no lostness. There is only presence. The feeling of being lost arises only when the mind insists on a map, on a certainty about the future. But here, now, there is nothing missing. The ground holds you. The breath moves. Awareness shines. In this presence, the idea of being lost dissolves, and what remains is wholeness. And so, when you feel lost, remember this: it is not a mistake. It is not proof that you are broken or that you have failed. It is life guiding you away from false maps, away from borrowed truths, toward the discovery of something deeper. Lostness is not the absence of path, but the opening to a greater path, one that cannot be charted in advance, but only walked moment by moment. You are not lost. You are the universe playing at being lost, so that it may discover itself anew. You are the wave that rises, not knowing where it will fall, the bird that soars without a fixed destination, the traveler who finds beauty only when the guidebook is forgotten. You are the dance itself, and the music, and the silence between the notes. And when you see this, when you feel it, not just as an idea, but as a lived reality, then lostness becomes something altogether different. It becomes freedom, intimacy, and trust. You no longer cling to certainty, for you see that certainty was never real. You no longer fear confusion, for you see that confusion is part of the dance. You no longer resist lostness, for you see that lostness is the doorway to being found. So let yourself be lost. Let yourself wander, question, doubt, and stumble. For in that very wandering, life is carrying you. In that very doubt, truth is ripening. In that very stumbling, the path is appearing. And in the end, you may discover that you were never lost at all, but always exactly where you needed to be.
You see, there is something very curious happening right now. Those who have begun to wake up, those who have started to see through the game, are quietly disappearing. Not with speeches or noise, but simply stepping back, no longer interested in the usual performance. If you felt this yourself, if ordinary conversations, social events, and small performances have started to feel unbearable, what I'm about to say may ease you. This isn't a disorder. It isn't antisocial behavior. It's what naturally happens when a person wakes up. By waking up, I don't mean reading a few books on philosophy or having a nice idea about oneness. I mean that moment when you suddenly notice that most of what people are doing is sleepwalking. They move around as if on automatic, playing roles they didn't choose, repeating lines they didn't write. And when you're asleep yourself, this doesn't seem strange at all. You blend in, you talk about nothing and think it matters. You care about other people's opinions and believe they're important. You chase things with no real substance and call it success. But when the veil drops, everything shifts. It's like walking out of a dark cinema into daylight. You can try to go back and enjoy the film, but you can't anymore because you know it's just a projection. You've seen the screen for what it is. That's what's happening to people who are waking up now. They find they can't keep participating in the collective dream, not because they think they're better than anyone else, but because their system simply can't accept what it once believed. Society runs on an agreement, a shared decision to pretend the characters we play are who we are, to pretend that the opinions we've absorbed are personal truths, to pretend that all this rushing and seriousness is actually leading somewhere important. The whole play only works if everyone stays in character. But when someone wakes up, they stop playing. They forget the script. They look directly at the stage itself. And this makes others uncomfortable, because the awakened can see beneath the surface. They see the fear behind the confidence, the emptiness behind the busyness. The fact that most arguments aren't about what people think they're about at all. And so they step away, not out of rejection, but because they can no longer pretend the game is real. When someone shouts their outrage into the public square, the awakened person doesn't see an enemy. They see unconscious material looking for somewhere to land. When society splits itself into us and them, the awakened person understands that both sides are simply projections colliding with each other. And once you've seen that, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending it's serious business. You can't take sides with the same heat and certainty as before, because you know it's all just a way of avoiding the mirror. So what does one do in that position? You withdraw. Not because you've stopped caring, not because you hate people, but because staying in the game demands that you deny what you've come to understand. Every conversation asks you to act as if you haven't seen what you've seen. Every social situation expects you to wear an older version of yourself, a mask that no longer fits. And after enough time, something in you refuses. It simply says, stop. Stop pretending. Stop shrinking yourself just to keep up the act. Go where you can actually breathe. And let's be clear, this is not about avoiding life. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not running away from the world because it's too hard. It's something much simpler and far more honest. It's the recognition that staying in unconscious environments slowly harms consciousness itself. It's like putting a living plant in a dark room. It might survive for a while, but eventually it withers. Being surrounded by people who are asleep isn't just uncomfortable, it's draining. You spend an enormous amount of energy holding your center while everything around you pulls you off balance. You filter out projections. Resist getting swept into emotional currents. And keep your awareness clear while others drift in fog. And no one sees the work you're doing because it's invisible. But it's real, and it costs you energy. Eventually, you realize you're spending all your strength just trying to stay awake in places that keep pulling you back to sleep. And that's when the choice appears. You choose consciousness over belonging, truth over approval, your own clarity over the comfort of being accepted by those who can't yet see what you see. That's when the disappearing begins. The first thing to go is the noise. Social media, for example, becomes unbearable because you can feel its nature. It's a machine built to keep people unconscious. Scrolling, judging, comparing, getting outraged, getting distracted. If you're awake, it's like standing in a river of sewage. So, you stop. You log out, you delete the apps, you stop feeding the machine. And without anyone noticing, hours of your life quietly return to you. Then you start leaving social circles, not with resentment, not with grand announcements. You simply stop showing up. Because you begin to see that most social spaces are stages. People are performing their lives, performing success, performing confidence, performing happiness, performing their opinions, and you can no longer play that part. Your real self has emerged, and it has no interest in putting on a mask. Then you leave certain relationships, not because you suddenly stopped caring about people, but because many of those bonds were built on a version of you that no longer exists. The sleeping version. Once you've woken up, you find there's no shared language anymore. You're no longer living in the same world. They're still speaking from inside the dream, and you're no longer in it. Then comes the career. That's often the hardest part. Because society has tied identity to work so tightly that leaving a job can feel like leaving yourself. But when you awaken, something changes. You can't play along with a system you can see through. You can't pretend to care about things that don't matter to you anymore. You can't sell your energy to roles that require you to stay unconscious. So, you leave. Sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, but you do leave. Because to stay would mean to slowly suffocate the very awareness you fought to bring into being. Now, here's the part most people misunderstand. They think disappearing from the noise means you'll end up isolated, lonely, depressed. But for someone who's awake, the opposite happens. In solitude, the loneliness ends. Because loneliness isn't about being without people, it's about being unseen among them. Aloneness is different. Aloneness is clarity. It's the space where you no longer have to twist yourself into a shape that fits. When the awakened person withdraws, they discover something most never realize. They were never truly with other people in the first place. Physical proximity is not connection. Real connection happens only when consciousness meets consciousness. And when you're awake in a room full of sleeping people, there's no one to meet. But in solitude, away from the noise and the endless performing, you finally meet yourself. Not the version you rehearsed for others, not the mask that was trained to fit into the world, but the living, breathing awareness behind all of that. And that isn't lonely, that is coming home. In that quiet space, you can finally hear your own thoughts without the static of 1,000 other voices. You can feel your own emotions without carrying everyone else's. You can discover what you actually want, what you actually believe, who you actually are. This is what I call the hermit phase. And it's not optional. It's essential. You cannot transform while clinging to every old connection and expectation. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly in the middle of a crowd. It withdraws, it cocoons, it goes silent for a while. And in the same way, awakening requires a period of retreat, not as escape, but as integration. This is when all the unconscious material you've carried for years finally has space to surface, to be seen and to be released. They are healing the damage that came from years of pretending to be someone they were not. They are gathering the strength to stand on their own ground, even when the rest of the world is still asleep. And this is no small task. It is much harder than staying unconscious. Because when you are awake, you lose the luxury of blame. You can no longer project your pain onto others. You can no longer hide from yourself in busyness, noise, or drama. Everything you've buried comes to the surface, and you must face it. No one can do that for you. But here's the strange, beautiful thing. Once you've walked through that darkness, once you've integrated what you've avoided, made peace with your shadow, and found what's real inside yourself, you stop depending on the world for your sense of reality. You stop needing approval. You stop begging for belonging. You no longer need the crowd to tell you who you are. You have something better. You found yourself. And from that place, if you choose to return to society, you return differently. Not to dive back into the noise, but to offer a quiet alternative. You become what I call a border dweller. Someone who stands with one foot in the sleeping world and one in the awakened. You are present, but not absorbed. Available, but not dependent. Engaged, but not entangled. Maybe you help those who are just beginning to stir. Maybe you create art that cuts through the surface and touches something real. Maybe you speak or write in ways that remind others of what they've forgotten. Or maybe you simply live your life so honestly that your very presence becomes a quiet question in the minds of others. Is there another way to be? But you never go back to the old game. You can't. Once you've tasted awareness, you can't return to sleep. Once you've felt your authentic self, you can't go back to performing a part. Once you've seen through the illusion, pretending becomes impossible. Now, some will say, isn't this selfish? Shouldn't we stay and try to wake everyone else up? Shouldn't we fight to fix the system from the inside? But here's the plain truth. You can't give what you don't have. If you haven't awakened fully yourself, if you haven't done the hard work of integrating your own shadow, then you're just another unconscious person trying to wake up other unconscious people. And that only spreads more confusion, no matter how noble your intentions. The most honest thing you can do for the world is to wake up yourself. Do the deep, uncomfortable work. Become genuinely conscious. And only then, from that steady ground, can you offer something real to those who are ready. And understand this. Most people aren't ready. Most don't want to wake up. They want the familiar dream, the roles, the comfort of the play. And that's their right. Your role is not to drag anyone out of their sleep. Your role is to wake up and to quietly make yourself available to those who are beginning to stir. That's why the awakened disappear, not out of bitterness or disdain, but because they need space to breathe. To live without having to constantly shrink themselves to make others comfortable. They find each other in quiet corners in small circles away from the stage. They build small pockets of sanity in a world still lost in its performance. And this isn't abandonment, it's responsibility. The world doesn't need more people reinforcing the dream. It needs people who've walked through it, woken up, and found something real. It needs living examples of authenticity. So if you feel the pull to disappear, if the noise, the games, and the performances no longer hold your attention, if you can no longer find yourself in the crowd, then listen to that pull. That is not weakness. That is your soul asking for space to grow. Do not resist it. Do not feel guilty. Do not force yourself to stay where you no longer belong. Withdraw. Rest. Be alone without apology. This is not permanent. You will return, but when you do, you won't be the same. You will return whole, clear, real. Someone who can offer consciousness instead of more performance. Use that solitude wisely. Do the work. Face your own darkness. Find what's real inside you. Because what the world actually needs is not more noise, not more preaching, not more performance, but people who have actually awakened. The spiritually awake are disappearing because they must. Because consciousness cannot deepen in places built to keep people asleep. Because authenticity cannot survive in constant performance. Because truth can't be found in collective lies. So if you are one of them, let yourself go. Withdraw without shame. Disappear without apology. Stand alone without feeling alone. Trust that this is an old pattern, older than any religion or philosophy. The way every human being who has ever awakened has walked. The caterpillar must dissolve before it can fly. The seed must break before it becomes the tree. And the awakened person must step away from the crowd before they can offer something real to it. This is not the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of consciousness that isn't borrowed from anyone else. The beginning of life lived from the center rather than from the script. And though the world may not understand it yet, it will. When it begins to stir, and when it does, people like you will already be there. Not as saviors, not as saints, but as quiet beacons. Pioneers. Carriers of something real. And that is enough.
There are times, you know, when life just stops making any noise inside you. You wake up, you go through the motions, you speak, you smile when necessary, but underneath it all there's this great silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind, the kind that feels like the absence of everything that once made you human. And you wonder, perhaps in the middle of the night, what happened. Not what went wrong, but what simply went away. Now this, you see, is something very few people talk about honestly, because it's not quite sadness, and it's not depression in the way we describe it. It's this strange neutral state where the heart has gone quiet. It's as though life has been drained of its taste, its color, its temperature. Food doesn't move you, music doesn't move you, beauty passes by, and you say, yes, that's nice, but it doesn't reach you. And the mind? Oh, the mind tries very hard to fix it. It says you're tired, or you need purpose, or you must be missing something. And so we set out again on another little quest. We read another book, we buy another thing, we start another project, and for a few moments we feel that flicker, that little flame of being alive, and then, almost cruelly, it disappears again. Now, perhaps you've noticed that when you feel nothing at all, the temptation is to run toward something, anything that will make you feel again. And yet, the more you run, the quieter it gets inside. You start to realize that what you're trying to escape is not outside of you. It's this very absence itself. You're afraid of it. You're afraid of nothingness. Let me tell you about a man I once met after a lecture. He waited until everyone had left, and then came up to me with that sort of half smile people wear when they're holding back tears. He said, "Alan, I don't feel anything anymore. Not joy, not sorrow. It's like my life has gone flat, and I'm terrified that I've broken something inside myself." And I said, "Well, perhaps you've broken the illusion that something inside you needs to always be feeling." You see, we have this idea that feeling is proof of being alive, that to feel nothing is to be half dead. But that's not true. Sometimes, to feel nothing is to stand at the very edge of transformation, because feeling nothing is what happens when the old ways of responding no longer make sense, when the machinery of your personality, all the habits, all the emotional reflexes have finally worn out. And so, for a while, you're left in this strange twilight. You're not who you were, but you haven't yet discovered who you are. And in that interval, it feels like a kind of death. The Buddhists have a word for this: shunyata, emptiness. Not emptiness as in despair, but emptiness as in spaciousness, as in a room cleared out so that something new might enter. But we in the West, we've never been very good at letting rooms stay empty. We rush to fill them with noise, with company, with goals. We can't bear the echo, and yet it's precisely that echo that begins to teach us something. Because when you finally stop running from it, you start to hear something softer within the silence. You start to notice that this nothing is not hostile. It's not an enemy. It's a space. And in that space, you are still there. You haven't vanished. You're simply resting from the performance of being someone. Now, if you've ever truly felt this kind of emptiness, you know it can't be solved by self-improvement. You can meditate, journal, change your diet, change your surroundings, and yet the silence remains. That's because the silence is not a problem. It's a teacher. Think of it like the winter of the soul. In winter, the trees look dead, the ground is cold, lifeless. But what's really happening is not death, it's incubation. Life is gathering itself unseen beneath the surface, waiting for the right season to emerge again. But if you were to judge the tree in winter, you'd say, it's over, it's finished. And that's what we do to ourselves when we feel nothing. We think something's gone wrong, but what's really happening is that the part of us that used to be moved by certain things no longer needs to be. That version of us has outlived its time. And so we call it numbness, but perhaps it's simply ripening. Now, of course, when I say this, people sometimes protest. They say, but Alan, if I don't feel, how can I love? How can I care? How can I live meaningfully? And I say, my dear, what if love itself is larger than feeling? What if caring doesn't always come with passion, but sometimes with quiet presence? What if meaning is what remains when you stop demanding life to feel a certain way? You see, we've confused feeling with aliveness, and in doing so, we've made aliveness terribly fragile. We think that to be alive means to be excited, inspired, passionate, moved, but that's just one flavor of it. There's another kind still, vast. Clear the aliveness of simply being aware. When you begin to realize this, the fear starts to ease. You no longer demand that every moment sparkle. You stop accusing yourself of being broken because you're not laughing or crying or thrilled. You start to see that there is peace in neutrality. There's a strange beauty in not needing life to perform for you. And in that moment, the numbness becomes softer. It begins to open like a shell. You start to feel not emotion, but presence. The texture of air, the sound of your own breathing, the subtle rhythm of existence. You see, when you stop searching for fireworks, you start noticing the candlelight. Now, the man I mentioned earlier, the one who said he felt nothing, he wrote to me a few months later. He said, I still feel nothing extraordinary, but it doesn't frighten me anymore. I go on my walks, I watch the sky, and sometimes I feel something small, something quiet. Not joy, exactly, more like belonging. And that, I think, is the beginning of awakening, because the heart doesn't reopen through force, it reopens through gentleness. When you stop demanding to feel alive, life returns to you in the most unassuming ways. It's rather like the way a wild animal returns to the forest after a storm. It waits until everything is still. If you go thrashing about shouting, come back, come back, it will hide deeper. But if you sit quietly, not needing it, not forcing it, eventually it appears again, curious, cautious, alive. And so it is with the human spirit. When you stop chasing feeling, feeling finds you. You see, most of our suffering comes from thinking we've lost something that was never ours to begin with. We say, I've lost my spark, or I've lost my joy, as though joy were an object you could misplace. But you never had it. It was never a possession. It was a rhythm and you were dancing to it. When the music changes, the body pauses. But the pause is not the end of the dance. It's part of it. The silence you fear is part of life's rhythm. The space between notes makes the music possible. Now, perhaps, if you're in that space right now, the worst thing anyone can tell you is cheer up or find your passion again, because they don't understand that what's happening isn't a problem to solve, it's an unfolding to witness. So instead of asking, how do I feel again? Ask, can I stay here long enough to see what this silence has to show me? Because if you can, you will start to notice that even in the emptiness, something subtle moves, awareness itself. And that, my dear, is life quietly breathing through you, even when you feel nothing at all. You see, we've been taught to think of awareness as a servant of feeling, as though being aware is only useful when it's filled with excitement or meaning. But awareness doesn't need a reason, it simply is. It's the background upon which all feelings appear and disappear. And when the feelings are gone, the awareness remains, quietly watching. So when you say, I feel nothing, what's actually happening is this. Awareness is still there, but it's no longer occupied. It's no longer being fed by the usual dramas and desires. It's as though the theater of your life has gone dark, the actors have gone home, and you're sitting in the empty hall, listening to the quiet. And at first, it feels lonely, intolerably so. But if you stay, if you resist the urge to switch the lights back on, something extraordinary begins to happen. You realize that the silence is alive. That's the strange thing. The silence, which seems so empty, starts to hum with a kind of invisible fullness. You notice the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a dog, the feeling of your own pulse in your hands. You start to sense the world breathing around you. And you think, well, nothing's happening, but in that nothing, everything is. This is what the mystics have been trying to tell us for centuries. That nothingness is not the absence of life. It's the presence of all life before we name it. It's the womb of experience. It's where the next form of you is forming. But the trouble is, most people never stay long enough to see it. They feel the first chill of emptiness and run back to the fire of distraction. They turn on a screen, call a friend, make plans, anything to drown the echo, because silence to the ego feels like death. And in a sense it is. The death of the ego's constant need to be entertained, to be validated, to be in control. But that's the death that makes space for something much wider, something that doesn't come and go with moods or circumstances. Now, perhaps you've noticed this paradox. When you finally stop trying to feel something, the world starts to feel you. The sunset, which you used to chase for beauty, now simply happens, and it touches you without effort. The sound of rain doesn't inspire emotion, it is emotion, without the label. Even boredom becomes strangely peaceful. This is the beginning of what I would call true feeling, not the noisy kind that rises and falls like waves, but the still kind that underlies the sea, the feeling of existence itself. But it's not easy to recognize this, because our culture has told us since birth that value comes from intensity. We admire passion, energy, enthusiasm. We say, he's so full of life. But we forget that even the stars burn themselves out. And what remains afterward is not death, it's vast, quiet space. So if you are in that quiet now, if you've grown tired of striving and still find no joy, I say, good, you're on the right track. Because you are beginning to see through the illusion that feeling something is better than seeing clearly. There is a peculiar story I remember from a student of mine, a woman who had spent years chasing inspiration. She told me, "Alan, I used to paint every day, and it filled me with meaning. But now I stand before the canvas and feel nothing. I've lost my gift." And I said, "Maybe you've lost the gift of ambition, not the gift of seeing. Try to paint without meaning." A few weeks later, she sent me a small painting, a simple one. A white bowl on a wooden table, sunlight touching the rim. There was no message, no drama, but it was alive in a way her earlier work wasn't. You could feel the quiet. She wrote, "I think I understand now. I don't paint to express anymore. I paint to listen." And that's it, you see. That's the movement from striving to seeing, from expression to presence. The world becomes not something you decorate with meaning, but something you participate in wordlessly. Now, the interesting thing is that when you stop trying to feel and you start allowing the nothingness, emotion returns on its own. It's softer, humbler. It's no longer a performance. It's like when the snow melts, the earth doesn't have to try to be fertile. It just is. The same happens in the human heart. When the ice of exhaustion melts, feeling flows again. Not the dramatic kind that sweeps you away, but the kind that roots you in being. But to reach that point, you must be willing to sit in the winter, to let the numbness teach you what false feelings have been carrying you all this time. And that's the secret most people never discover, that numbness is not the absence of emotion, but the exhaustion of pretending. You've spent years being what the world asked you to be, excited, loving, productive, optimistic, spiritual even. Each of those roles drains the battery of the soul, and when the performance ends, the silence that follows is the sound of truth returning. But because no one tells you this, you think something's wrong. You say, "Why can't I go back?" But you can't go back to pretending because you've seen too much. The numbness is not punishment, it's protection. It's your spirit saying, "Enough, let's just be." And when you surrender to that, when you stop demanding fireworks, something gentler appears. You start noticing the smallest movements, the sound of a kettle, the warmth of light on your hand. These tiny things, once ignored, now shimmer with a quiet importance. It's as though the universe is whispering, "I'm still here." You see, feeling doesn't begin when the heart races. It begins when you stop racing. The most profound feelings often appear in disguise, not as joy, but as stillness, not as excitement, but as peace. And then one day, quite suddenly, you'll find yourself crying over nothing at all, the way the leaves move, the way a stranger laughs, the way sunlight hits a wall. And you'll realize that the nothing you feared was never empty. It was holding everything you were too busy to feel. So if you are here now, walking through this strange landscape of quiet, don't rush to leave it. Don't mistake it for apathy or failure. You are not broken. You are becoming real. The world you once knew was built on noise. And silence, at first, feels like loss, but it's only clearing the ground for truth. Every seed feels buried before it grows. So let the numbness be your soil. Let it cover you, hold you, and trust that what looks like emptiness is just the space life needs to begin again. Because one day, you will wake up and realize that nothing has changed and yet everything feels alive again. The same sky, the same faces, the same world, but you are seeing it from beyond the veil of meaning. You are no longer trying to extract feeling from life, you are letting life feel through you. And that, you see, is the difference between being alive and knowing you are alive. When you've sat in the stillness long enough, something begins to move again. Not the mind that's been running all along, but something deeper. Something that stirs beneath the surface like the first ripple on a frozen pond. It doesn't come as fireworks or revelation. It comes as warmth. A faint warmth that feels almost fragile at first, like the light of dawn before the sun rises. You can't quite explain it. Nothing in your life has changed. You're still the same person, sitting in the same chair, looking at the same world. But something in the way you see has shifted. The silence that once frightened you now feels intimate. The emptiness that once felt hollow now feels safe, as though you're resting in the hands of something vast. And then it hits you, this is what you were running from all along. Not the pain, not the sadness, but the simplicity of being. Because to simply be is to give up control. It's to stop managing your own aliveness and let it unfold on its own terms. It's a humbling thing to realize that life doesn't need your constant supervision, that the heart beats without your permission, that breath moves in and out without your will. And when you stop interfering, you see that the world has always known how to take care of itself. We imagine ourselves as the authors of our experience, but really, we are the readers. The story is already written in the language of time and change, and our only task is to read it aloud with wonder. The reason most people can't feel is not because they're empty, but because they're trying to write faster than they can read. They're trying to force meaning into a moment that hasn't yet revealed itself. But meaning is not a thing you make, it's something you notice when you stop trying to manufacture it. You may recall a time in your life when you laughed so hard you forgot yourself, or looked at the ocean and felt both small and infinite. That's the moment you stopped thinking about life and started being with it. That's the return we're all aching for, the home we keep leaving without knowing. And you begin to see that even your numbness was part of that homecoming. It stripped you of everything that wasn't real, your ambitions, your self-image, even your spirituality, until only awareness remained. That's why people mistake awakening for emptiness at first. Because awakening isn't adding light to the darkness, it's realizing the darkness was light all along, misunderstood. You can't awaken from something that isn't dreaming. And the dream, you see, is this endless pursuit of how you think you're supposed to feel. But when you wake, even slightly, you see that every state, joy, sorrow, confusion, numbness, was never a mistake. It was all life exploring itself through different textures. You are not supposed to always feel vibrant. You are supposed to feel alive, which includes the quiet, the empty, the lost, and the tender. Now, the remarkable thing is that when this understanding starts to sink in, love appears. Not the romantic kind, not even the emotional kind, but the kind that feels like gravity. A quiet recognition that everything belongs. The mistakes, the silences, the parts of you tried to fix, all of it was already part of the dance. You start forgiving yourself without effort, because you see there's nothing left to forgive. The one who made the mistakes no longer exists. That version of you was doing its best with the light it had. And this love, this quiet, unconditional recognition begins to color everything. You see the world not as a set of problems to solve, but as a constant movement of form and disappearance. And you realize nothing ever truly leaves. Things change, yes, but disappearance is only transformation by another name. This is when feeling returns, but it doesn't arrive as drama, it arrives as grace. The way water returns to the earth, not with thunder, but with rain. You find yourself feeling moved by small things, again, a bird pausing on the window, the sound of someone laughing nearby, the weight of your own breath. You don't chase these moments. They appear naturally, like reflections in still water. And then you understand feeling was never gone. You were simply looking for it in the wrong direction. You were looking outward toward the world of sensations and meanings, when all along it was waiting inward in the stillness that never left. When you stop running from nothingness, you find it's the only place peace has ever lived. And that peace is not an experience, but a condition of being the natural state beneath the noise. It doesn't depend on mood, achievement, or clarity. It's the quiet recognition that everything you touch is temporary, and that this is not a tragedy, but the very reason life can be beautiful. Because if everything stayed, nothing would move, and if nothing moved, there could be no experience at all. So feeling nothing for a time Is life teaching you how to stop confusing movement with meaning? It's the pause between the notes that lets the music breathe. You begin to live differently when you know this. You stop grasping at pleasure and stop running from pain. You begin to trust the seasons of your own spirit. When joy comes, you welcome it, but when silence returns, you don't fight it, you make tea for it. And when you look back, you see that what you called numbness was really a teacher in disguise. It came to strip away what was false, so that what was true could finally be felt. I remember once a man asked me, "Alan, how do I find peace?" And I said, "Stop looking for it as something to find. Start seeing it as what remains when the search ends." The man said, "Then should I do nothing?" And I smiled. Doing nothing is still doing something. The trick is to stop trying to do nothing and allow yourself to be what is already happening. This puzzled him, as it does most of us. But later he wrote to me saying, "I sat by the river for hours, and nothing happened until I realized that the river was doing all the happening." That's it. When you stop trying to force life, you realize life has been living you all along. The numbness fades not because you escape it, but because you stop naming it. When you stop calling it emptiness, it becomes space. When you stop calling it loneliness, it becomes presence. When you stop calling it meaninglessness, it becomes freedom. And then one day you notice you're smiling again, not for any reason, but because the breeze feels like a friend. Because the moment, however small, feels like home. The return of feeling is quiet, humble, and profoundly ordinary. It doesn't arrive with music or revelation. It arrives as a soft knowing that you were never separate from the flow. That everything, even your detachment, was part of life's way of holding you until you were ready to soften again. So, if you feel nothing now, do not despair. You are standing at the threshold of your own awakening. You are learning how to feel without the drama, to love without the story, to live without the noise. And the beauty of it all is that life doesn't rush you. It waits, endlessly patient, until you are ready to remember. Because the truth is, life was never trying to make you feel something. It was trying to show you that you are what's feeling itself. Not a person having an emotion, but awareness meeting its own reflection. And once you see that, once you truly understand that the silence inside you is not a void but a mirror, you realize you've never been alone. You've only been looking away. When you sit quietly, you begin to sense that there is a pulse beneath everything, a rhythm so subtle that only stillness can hear it. And that pulse is the universe breathing through you. You realize you don't need to find connection because you are connection. You don't need to chase purpose because purpose is simply the act of being awake to this. Feeling nothing was never a problem to solve. It was a doorway through which you step, leaving behind the noise of identity and entering the space where being and feeling are one and the same. And when you walk through that door, life no longer happens to you. It happens as you. The rain falls, and you are the rain. The wind moves, and you are the wind. The world breathes, and you are the breath. You are the silence listening to itself. So, if you are feeling nothing at all, know this: you are closer to truth than you've ever been. Stay there, let it open, and soon enough, you will see that nothing was ever missing. You were simply being prepared to see the everything that was always here. Because in the stillest moment, when all else fades away, you'll finally understand nothing was wrong, nothing was broken, nothing was missing. It was all just life unfolding quietly until you were ready to feel again.
You know, there's something absolutely extraordinary that occurs when two people who have genuinely awakened to their true nature encounter each other. It's not what the romantic novels tell you. It's not what the spiritual communities often describe. It's something far more subtle, far more profound, and in many ways far more beautiful than anything we've been conditioned to expect. Most relationships, if we're honest, are based on a kind of mutual incompleteness. Two people come together because each feels that something is missing, something is lacking, and the other person seems to promise to fill that void. This is what we usually call falling in love, but it's really falling into need. It's two halves trying to make a whole, two empty cups trying to fill each other, two drowning people clinging to each other in the hope of staying afloat. And there's nothing wrong with this, necessarily. This is where most of humanity lives, and these relationships can be perfectly functional, even pleasant. But they're based on a fundamental misunderstanding. They're based on the belief that you are incomplete, that happiness exists outside of you, that another person can give you what you lack within yourself. But when two awakened souls meet, something entirely different happens. And the first thing you need to understand is that awakened souls don't need each other. Let me repeat that because it's crucial. They don't need each other. They're already complete. They've already discovered that the wholeness they were seeking was never outside themselves. They've realized that they are not separate, limited beings who need to be completed by another. They are the universe itself, experiencing life through a particular form. So when two such people encounter each other, they're not coming together to fill a void. They're coming together because they want to, not because they have to. And this simple distinction changes absolutely everything. The entire quality of the relationship is transformed when it's based on choice rather than need, on preference rather than desperation, on celebration rather than compensation. Think about it this way. When you're hungry, really hungry, you'll eat almost anything. You're not tasting the food, you're just trying to fill the emptiness. But when you're already satisfied, when you're already full, then if you choose to eat, it's pure enjoyment. You're tasting every flavor, appreciating every texture. You're eating for the pleasure of eating, not to fill a hole. This is what happens when awakened souls come together. They're not using each other. They're not trying to extract something from each other to fill their inner emptiness. They're simply enjoying each other, appreciating each other, celebrating the mystery of consciousness, recognizing itself in another form. And here's what's fascinating. Because neither person needs the other, because neither is clinging or grasping or demanding, there's a kind of freedom in the relationship that most people never experience. Each person is completely free to be themselves, to change, to grow, to move. There's no sense of possession, no fear of loss, no desperate attempt to control or manipulate or make the other person conform to some image of what they should be. When an awakened person looks at another awakened person, they're not seeing someone they need to complete them. They're seeing the universe looking back at itself. They're recognizing that the consciousness looking out of those other eyes is the same consciousness looking out of their own eyes. It's one awareness experiencing itself from two different vantage points, playing a kind of cosmic game of hide and seek. This recognition creates a very particular kind of intimacy. It's not the desperate, clinging intimacy of two people who fear being alone. It's not the melodramatic intensity of two egos trying to merge and losing themselves in the process. It's something much more spacious, much more relaxed. It's the intimacy of two dancers who trust each other completely, who don't need to hold on to each other to stay balanced, who can move independently while still being perfectly synchronized. Let me tell you what doesn't happen when two awakened souls meet. There's no drama. Oh, there might be passion, there might be intensity, but there's no drama in the neurotic sense. No games, no manipulation, no power struggles, no desperate attempts to change the other person. Because both people have seen through the game of ego. They're not playing it with each other. There's no jealousy, or at least no clinging jealousy. An awakened person might feel a momentary flash of jealousy because they're still human, but they don't identify with it. They don't make it into a story. They don't use it as a weapon. They see it for what it is, a temporary emotion, a wave on the surface of consciousness, nothing more. There's no fear of abandonment, because the awakened person knows they can never truly be abandoned. They know that even if the other person walks away, they're still complete, still whole, still connected to the universe itself. They might feel sadness at the ending of a relationship, but they don't experience that existential terror that comes from believing you've lost something essential to your survival. And perhaps most importantly, there's no attempt to possess the other person. The awakened soul understands that you cannot possess another human being any more than you can possess the wind or the ocean or the sky.
The other person is free, has always been free, will always be free. And rather than seeing this as a threat, the awakened person sees it as beautiful. They're not trying to cage a bird. They're marveling at the bird's ability to fly. So what does happen when two awakened souls meet? First, there's recognition. It's often instantaneous. Not in the romantic sense of love at first sight, but in a deeper sense of, I see who you really are, and you see who I really am. There's a kind of transparency that occurs. All the usual masks, all the social performances, all the ego defenses, they become unnecessary. Both people can relax into their authentic nature. This recognition creates a very particular quality of communication. When awakened souls communicate, they're not just exchanging information or defending positions or trying to impress each other. They're playing, they're exploring, they're dancing with ideas and perspectives. They can disagree completely about something without it threatening the relationship, because they're not identified with their opinions. They're not their thoughts. They're the awareness in which thoughts arise. There's also a profound respect, not the superficial respect of politeness, but a deep recognition of the mystery that each person is. The awakened soul knows that they cannot fully understand another person, can never completely know them, and they don't try to. They allow the other person to remain mysterious, to be unpredictable, to surprise them. They're not trying to figure the other person out so they can control or manipulate them. They're simply appreciating the enigma. When two awakened souls are together, there's often long stretches of comfortable silence. They don't need to fill every moment with words. They're comfortable with just being in each other's presence. The silence isn't awkward or uncomfortable. It's full, rich, alive. They're communing at a level deeper than words. Consciousness, resting in consciousness. Awareness, enjoying awareness. And when they do speak, there's a quality of listening that's quite rare. Each person is truly hearing the other, not just waiting for their turn to talk, not filtering everything through their own agenda or assumptions. They're open, curious, genuinely interested in the other person's perspective, even if it's completely different from their own. There's also a kind of humor that emerges when awakened souls meet. They can laugh at the cosmic joke together. They can see the absurdity of existence, the improbability of consciousness, the strange game that life is playing. They don't take themselves too seriously. They can laugh at their own egos, at their own patterns, at the human comedy of which they're both a part. Physical intimacy, when it occurs between awakened souls, takes on a completely different quality. It's not about need or conquest or validation. It's not about using the other person's body to distract yourself from your inner emptiness. It's a celebration, a dance, a form of play. It's consciousness, exploring consciousness through physical form. There's no performance anxiety because neither person is trying to prove anything. There's no disconnection because both people are fully present, fully aware, fully alive to the moment. And here's something interesting. Awakened souls can be together or apart with equal ease. They don't cling to constant togetherness. They understand that closeness and distance are both valuable, that separation can be as nourishing as union. They can give each other space without it meaning rejection. They can come together without it meaning possession. There's a natural rhythm to the relationship, like breathing in and breathing out, coming together and moving apart. And neither phase is seen as better or worse than the other. When conflicts arise, as they inevitably do, even between awakened souls, they're handled very differently. There's no need to be right. There's no need to win. Both people are more interested in understanding than in being understood, more interested in resolution than in victory. They can admit when they're wrong without it threatening their sense of self. They can apologize without resentment. They can forgive without keeping score. There's also a profound generosity in the relationship. Not the forced generosity of someone who's trying to earn love, but the natural generosity of someone who's already full. The awakened soul gives freely because it's a joy to give, not because they expect something in return. They support the other person's growth, even when that growth takes the person in a different direction. They want the other person to be fully themselves, even if that means growing beyond the relationship. And this brings me to a crucial point. When two awakened souls meet, they understand that the relationship might not be forever, and they're okay with that. They're not trying to lock it down, to make it permanent, to guarantee that it will last until death do them part. They're enjoying it now, fully, completely, without projecting into the future or comparing it to the past. And paradoxically, this very lack of clinging often makes the relationship last longer and go deeper than relationships based on need and fear. There's also a quality of surrender in the relationship. Not the surrender of one person to another, but both people surrendering to something larger than themselves. They're allowing life to move through them, to express itself through their connection. They're not forcing the relationship to be anything in particular. They're letting it be what it is, letting it evolve naturally, trusting the process. When awakened souls are together, they bring out the best in each other, but not through criticism or pressure or trying to fix each other. They do it simply by being themselves, by modeling what it looks like to live authentically, by creating a space where the other person feels safe to drop their masks and defenses. Each person's awakening deepens the other's awakening. It's a kind of resonance, like two tuning forks vibrating at the same frequency, amplifying each other. There's also a sense of sacred ordinariness in the relationship. Everything becomes meaningful, even the mundane activities. Washing dishes together, sitting in traffic, paying bills. These ordinary moments become infused with presence, with awareness, with the recognition that this moment, exactly as it is the only moment there ever is. They're not waiting for some special moment in the future to be happy. They're finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, the sacred in the mundane. And here's something that might surprise you. Awakened souls can feel all the emotions that everyone else feels. They feel attraction, affection, even jealousy and anger and sadness. But they don't identify with these emotions. They don't make them into problems. They don't build stories around them. They feel them fully and completely and then let them pass. It's like weather passing through the sky. The sky doesn't cling to the storm or push away the sunshine. It allows both to come and go. When two awakened souls meet, there's also a recognition that the relationship is not about personal fulfillment. It's not about completing each other or finding happiness together. It's about something much larger. It's about consciousness exploring itself, about the universe experiencing itself in relationship, about life expressing itself through the dance of two beings who've remembered who they really are. There's a famous Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The same could be said for relationships. Before awakening, you relate to another person. After awakening, you relate to another person. The actions might look the same from the outside. But the inner quality, the inner experience, is completely transformed. The awakened relationship is not free from challenges. There are still practical matters to navigate, differences to bridge, adjustments to make, but these challenges are not seen as problems. They're seen as opportunities for deeper understanding, for greater wisdom, for more complete presence. Every difficulty becomes a teacher, every conflict becomes a doorway to greater consciousness. And perhaps most beautifully, when two awakened souls meet, they create a field of consciousness that affects everyone around them. Their presence together has a quality that others can feel, even if they can't articulate it. It's peaceful but not passive. It's joyful but not manic. It's loving but not needy. It radiates outward, touching everyone it encounters, inviting others to remember their own true nature. This is what happens when two awakened souls meet. Not the fireworks and drama and desperate clinging of neurotic love, but something far more precious. A meeting of two beings who've remembered what they are, who see the divine in each other, who can dance together without stepping on each other's toes, who can be completely together and completely free at the same time. It's a relationship not of need but of celebration, not of possession but of appreciation, not of fear but of trust, not of becoming but of being. And in this being together, in this mutual recognition, in this dance of consciousness with consciousness, something profound is revealed. That love is not something that happens between two separate beings. In a very peculiar trap. We are convinced that life is a journey, a pilgrimage, with a serious purpose at the end. And the goal is to get to that end successfully, meaning with a certain sense of virtue, of accomplishment, to have achieved something, to have left our mark. But what if the entire affair is rather more like a piece of music or a dance? The meaning of a symphony is not contained in its final chord. The meaning of the dance is not to get to a particular spot on the floor. The meaning of it all is in the playing itself, in the dancing itself. So the question I'd like to explore with you is this: what happens when we stop taking this musical, dancing, swirling, star-like existence so dreadfully seriously? You know, we have this immense burden. We walk around with a constant low-grade anxiety that we are not doing it right, that we are not living properly. We are forever preparing to live. We think, I must get through school to get a good job. I must get a good job to have a secure life. I must have a secure life to raise a family. I must raise a family so they can get through school to get a good job. It's an endless cycle of purpose, where the purpose is always elsewhere. It's never right here. It's never now. We are like people reading a novel who are only interested in getting to the last page. And so we skim. We turn the pages frantically, missing all the poetry, all the drama, all the lovely descriptions, just to see how it turns out. And then when we get there, we close the book and say, is that all? And the whole point of the book was in the reading, in the living through it. We are missing the show because we are too busy looking for the meaning behind the show. We are like a person at a concert who does not listen to the music, but instead reads the score, checking for mistakes. The music is playing all around him, and he is missing the entire point. This is what happens when life becomes a problem to be solved, rather than a reality to be experienced. We build up this enormous structure of seriousness. We have to have the right credentials. We have to have the right job title. We have to have the right kind of car, the right address. We have to be seen with the right people. It's a colossal act, a performance, and we are terrified that the audience will see through the cracks, that they will see we are just making it up as we go along. And of course we are. Everyone is. The secret that nobody ever admits is that nobody really knows what's going on. We're all just playing roles. The doctor, the lawyer, the businessman, the mother, the father. They are roles, they are games. And games are fun, so long as you don't confuse the game with your fundamental reality. The problem arises when you forget you are playing, when you think you are your role, that you are the mask. Then the game becomes a prison. It becomes serious, and you have to defend it. You have to prove you are a good, serious, upstanding, purposeful person. But what is the alternative to all this seriousness? It seems frightening. If I am not serious, if I don't have a purpose, then what am I? I become a nothing, a washout, a failure in the eyes of the world. But this is where we have a profound misunderstanding. We think the opposite of seriousness is frivolity, shallowness, a kind of irresponsible laughter. But that's not it at all. The true opposite of taking life seriously is to see it as play, to see the universe itself as fundamentally playful. Look at nature. Does it look serious to you? Look at a kitten chasing its tail. Look at waves lapping against the shore. Look at the patterns of migrating birds in the sky. Do they look like they are on a grim mission? Do the clouds look like they are filled with existential dread? No, they are simply playing. They are expressing themselves. The universe is, at heart, a musical phenomenon. It is a dance of energy. And a dance has no destination. It is its own reason for being. We have this idea that everything in nature has a purpose. The bird sings to attract a mate. The flower is bright to attract a bee. The butterfly has eye spots to scare away predators. It's all an engineering project. But this is just us projecting our own purpose-driven anxiety onto the world. Why does the bird really sing? Why does the wave really break on the shore? Why does the star really shine? Is it not perhaps for the same reason a child sings or skips, for the sheer joy of expression, for the fun of it? We say the bird sings for a purpose, to survive. But I must ask, why survive? What is that for? To sing more songs, to have more babies who will sing more songs. You see, it becomes a circular argument. It's like saying the purpose of music is to get to the end of the composition. It misses the point entirely. The Chinese have a wonderful concept, Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting without straining, without forcing. It is the way of water, which wears away the hardest rock by yielding. It does not strive. It simply flows. And in that flowing, it accomplishes everything. And they have another word for this attitude towards nature: purposelessness. Now, to our Western ears, that is a terrible insult. Purposeless? That's useless. That's a waste of time. But to the Chinese mind, it is the highest compliment. They look at nature and see it as purposeless. The mountains just are. The rivers just flow. They aren't going anywhere. They aren't achieving anything. They are simply expressing their own nature. And in that, they are profoundly beautiful, profound and trustworthy. We think trust means believing that nature will always give us what we want, that it will be safe and comfortable. But that's not trust. That is a demand. Real trust is like the trust you have when you throw a ball. You let go of it. You have faith in the process. You don't hold on to the ball and run to the other person and carefully place it in their hand. You throw it, you let it fly. Life requires that same kind of trust. It requires you to let go, to stop trying to hold everything so tightly, to stop trying to control every outcome. If you do not have this trust, if you do not trust nature, and by nature I mean both the world outside you and your own inner nature, what is the alternative? The alternative is what we have created. It is a world of total mistrust. It is a world where we feel nature has got to be watched. It has got to be controlled. We can't trust our own instincts, our own desires, our own emotions. They are too dangerous. They are too messy. So what do? We create authorities to manage it all. We create rules, laws, systems, bureaucracies. We create a world where the most important thing is not the living of life, but the recording of it. It is more important that your files are in order than that you are a kind person. It is more important that the university's records are perfect than that its library is full of inspiring books. We are so busy measuring life that we forget to live it. We become our own jailers. We are so afraid of making a mistake, of looking foolish, of not being serious enough, that we fence ourselves in. We create a life that is, as they say, all jail and no prisoner, a structure with nothing alive inside it. But life is inherently messy. It is inherently playful. It is inherently spontaneous. You cannot schedule a moment of awe. You cannot program a belly laugh. You cannot force a genuine insight. These things happen when you let go. They happen when you stop taking yourself so seriously. A true scholar, in the original sense, is not someone who studies to get a degree. The word scholar means leisure. A scholar was a person of leisure who studied things not because they were useful, but because they were fascinating, because they were delightful. They studied the charming irrelevances of life, the things that do not contribute directly to survival, but that make survival worthwhile. Poetry, art, music, philosophy, the patterns of stars, the shapes of shells, this is play. And if you do not have room in your life for the playful, life is not worth living. But, and this is a very important but, if the only reason you play is because it is good for you, because it helps you work better afterwards, then you are not really playing at all. You are just working in a different form. You must learn to do things that have no purpose. Pick up a pebble. Look at it. Don't try to get a sermon out of it. Don't try to make it mean something. Just enjoy its texture, its color, its shape. Just enjoy it. Do not feel you have to justify the moment by saying it advances your aesthetic understanding. Just enjoy the pebble. When you can do that, you become, strangely, a healthy human being. You become able to be a loving, helpful person. But if you can only do things because you are going to get something out of it, you are what I would call a vulture. You are circling over life, waiting to profit from it, instead of landing and joining the dance. So, the first step is to see the incredible weight of seriousness we carry. To see the structure of purpose we have built around ourselves, like a shell. And to begin to wonder, what if we could set it down? Just for a moment. What if we could, as the Chinese say, learn purposelessness? What would that feel like? It would feel like the moment you stop striving and simply listen to the rain. It would feel like watching wild geese fly and be hidden in the clouds. It would feel like watching a ship vanish behind a distant island. It would feel like wandering on and on in a great forest with no thought of return. Haven't you ever done that? Haven't you ever just gone for a walk with no particular place to go? You twiddle your thumbs. You hit a stick against a stump. You are in that moment a perfectly rational human being. You have learned the great art of purposelessness. And in that space, life stops being a problem. It becomes a song. And you begin to hear the music that has been playing all along. But this is only the beginning. We have seen the weight. Now we must look at the dancer. We must look at this you that is trying so hard to be serious. What is it? Where did it come from? And is it perhaps also part of the game? So we find ourselves carrying this immense weight. We are playing a role, and we have forgotten that it is a role. We have become convinced that the mask is our true face. That the part we play, the banker, the mother, the student, the failure, the success, is who we are fundamentally. But this you that you take so seriously, this ego, this personality, what is it? Where did it come from? If you look for it, it's rather elusive. It's a collection of memories, a bundle of desires and fears, a certain pattern of behavior. It's a story you tell yourself and others about who you are. I am a person who likes this and dislikes that. I am someone who did this and failed to do that. It is a concept, a thought. And like all thoughts, it is fleeting. It has no solidity. You cannot locate it in the body. Is it in the head? The heart? The brain is an instrument, a fantastic computer, but it is not the operator. The eye cannot see itself. The tooth cannot bite itself. The thinker cannot think itself. This you is a vibration, a pattern, a whirlpool in the stream of life. A whirlpool is a recognizable pattern. You can say, there is the whirlpool, but if you try to grab it, to take it out of the river, you get nothing but a handful of water. The whirlpool is something the river is doing. It is an activity, not a thing. In the same way, what you call me is something the universe is doing, right here and right now. It is a temporary dancing pattern, a gesture, and like a gesture in the air, it is fundamentally empty. It leaves no trace. Now, this can sound frightening. The idea that I am not a solid, enduring thing can feel like annihilation. But is it? Or is it the discovery of your true, vast nature? You are not the whirlpool. You are the whole river. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. We are all actors in this fantastic divine play. And the problem is not that we are acting. The problem is that we are bad actors. We are method actors. We have gotten so absorbed in the part that we've forgotten the curtain will fall. We've forgotten the audience. We've even forgotten that there are other actors on the stage, and we think our role is the only important one. A good actor knows he is acting. He can play the part of a king with tremendous conviction. But when he walks off the stage, he takes off the crown and has a beer. He doesn't go home and order his family about because he was a king on stage. He knows it was a game. The whole of life has a similar nature. It is a drama. It is a play of energy. And when you know that, you can play your part with immense verve, with passion, with compassion, with everything you have. But you won't be deceived. You won't take the tragedies backstage. You won't cling to the triumphs as if they were your permanent identity. You see, when you don't take your ego so seriously, a wonderful thing happens. You begin to relax. The constant low-grade anxiety of having to protect this fragile fictional self begins to dissolve. You can afford to be more spontaneous. You can afford to be foolish. You can afford to make mistakes. Because it's all part of the play. A wave in the ocean is not anxious about crashing on the shore. It's what waves do. It's part of the rhythm. It will gather itself again. In the same way, your successes and failures are just part of the rhythm of your expression. They are not the final judgment on you, because there is no you to be judged in that solid, fixed way. There is only the dancing, the flowing. This is why the Chinese sages praised purposelessness. They saw that nature is not going anywhere. It is just expressing itself. A tree does not purpose to grow. It grows because it is a tree. A bird does not purpose to sing. It sings because it is a bird. We are the same. Our purpose is not some distant goal. Our purpose is to express what we are right now. And what are we? We are the universe. We are nature. We are that same energy that blows out the stars, that shapes the galaxies, that curls the waves. You are not a stranger in a foreign universe. You are this universe, and it is you. So, how do you live this? How do you stop taking the mask so seriously? You don't do anything. That's the great joke. You cannot try to be spontaneous. You cannot make an effort to be effortless. That is like trying to bite your own teeth. Or like a person hearing a funny joke and then stopping to think, I must laugh now to show I understand. The real laugh comes from nowhere. It happens to you. When this realization dawns, life ceases to be a problem. It becomes a game, a very serious game, sometimes. A tragic game, sometimes. But a game nonetheless, and you can play a serious game without taking it seriously. A good chess player is utterly absorbed in the game. He cares deeply, but he does not think. The fate of the universe rests on whether he wins or loses. He knows it's chess, so you can go about your life. You can do your job, raise your family, pay your bills, but you do it with a lightness. You do it as an expression, not as a means of validation. You work not because you have to prove you are a worthy person, but because the work is there to be done, like a mountain is there to be climbed. This is what is called working for the work's sake, singing for the song's sake. It is action without attachment. You pour yourself completely into the moment, and then you let it go. You don't cling to the result. A cat does not pursue a mouse because it has a philosophy of predation. It does it because it is a cat. It is totally absorbed in the pursuit. It is a perfect expression of cattiness. And when the moment is over, it is over. The cat stretches and goes to sleep. It doesn't lie awake wondering if it was a good cat or if it could have caught the mouse more efficiently. It is simply itself. We can learn from that. We can learn to be simply ourselves. Not the idea of ourselves, but the living, breathing, immediate reality of ourselves. When you are no longer defending a fragile self-image, you become incredibly strong. Criticism doesn't shatter you. Failure doesn't define you. Success doesn't inflate you. You can flow with circumstances. You can adapt. You can be like water, which is soft and yielding, yet which can eventually wear away the hardest rock. This is not passivity. This is supreme intelligence. It is action that is in accord with the total situation, not just with your narrow, selfish desire. It is the action of the whole universe expressing itself through you. So you see, the answer to the burden of seriousness is not to become frivolous. It is to become playful, to see the cosmos as it is, a joyous, spontaneous, and yes, sometimes painful dance. And to see yourself not as a lonely dancer, but as the dance itself. But the dance has a rhythm. It has a certain pattern. And to understand that pattern is to understand the deepest joke of all. Now, having seen the weight of our self-constructed seriousness, and having glimpsed the illusion of the separate solitary ego, we are left with a question. Not a question to be answered, but an invitation to participate. What is left when you are not busy building a monument to yourself? What remains when the constant narration in your head, the commentary, the judgment, the planning begins to quiet down? What remains is the experience itself, the raw, unfiltered isness of things, the feeling of the wind on your skin, the sound of a distant bird, the coolness of water. This is not a trivial reality. This is the fundamental reality. The world is not something you have to figure out. It is something to be tasted, touched, heard, and seen. You are not a passenger in the universe being taken for a ride. You are the universe experiencing itself. The eyes you look out of are not your personal possession. They are the eyes of life itself, looking out at its own creation. The energy that animates your body is the same energy that spins the galaxies. This is not a mystical fantasy. This is the most practical thing in the world. When you know this, not just as an idea, but as a feeling in your bones, your relationship with everything changes. You begin to see that life is not a journey with a destination. It is a musical thing. You are here to sing, to dance, to play. But we have been taught that playing is frivolous, that it is only for children. But I ask you, what is the alternative? All work and no play does not just make Jack a dull boy. It makes him a nervous wreck. It makes him a tyrant. It makes him a machine. The alternative is to join the dance, to understand that your very existence is your justification. You do not need permission to be. You do not need to earn the right to be here. You are here because you are here, just as a rose is red because it is a rose. So how does one live this way? You don't try. Trying is the energy of the separate ego, the energy of seriousness. You simply begin to notice. You notice the moments when you are already not trying. The moment you are captivated by a piece of music and forget yourself. The moment you are so absorbed in a conversation that time stops. The moment you are walking in nature and your endless internal chatter simply ceases. In those moments, you are there. You are fully present. And in that presence, there is no problem. There is only the dance. The goal is not to make those moments happen. The goal is to notice that they are always available, because the dance is always happening. Your very breathing is part of it. Your heartbeat is the drum beat. This is the great liberation. To understand that you are already free. You are already what you are seeking. You are not going to become happy, peaceful, or enlightened at some future date. You can only be those things now. Any effort to become something is a rejection of what you already are, which is the energy of the cosmos. This does not mean you become passive. Quite the opposite. When you are not wasting energy defending an idea of yourself, you have immense energy available for life. You can act with tremendous efficiency and compassion, because your action is not about you. It is about the situation itself. It is the universe responding to itself. You become like the Zen archer, who does not shoot the arrow. It shoots. There is no arrogant archer separate from the bow, the arrow, and the target. There is only the one event, the shooting. This is action without strain. This is wu-wei. And so the call to action is not a call to do something new. It is a call to see something you have been overlooking. It is a call to trust. To trust yourself, to trust your own nature, and the nature of which you are a part. Yes, this is a risk. Life will sometimes let you down with a wallop. But the alternative, the life of total mistrust, of control, of constant surveillance of yourself and the world, that is not a life at all. That is a prison of your own making. The call is to let go, to join the dance that has been going on for billions of years, to sing the song that is already singing itself through you. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. You are under no obligation to be serious. You are under no obligation to justify your existence. Your only obligation, if there is one, is to be true to the deepest truth of your being, that you are a unique, irreplaceable, and temporary expression of the whole universe. And the universe is not serious. It is playful. It is joyful. It is a great cosmic game of hide and seek. where it is both the hider and the seeker. So, go on, play, experiment, be foolish, be magnificent, fail gloriously, succeed lightly, love, lose, feel it all. But whatever you do, don't miss the show by being too busy looking for the meaning behind it. The meaning is in the music. The meaning is in the dance. And you are the music. You are the dance.